Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my favorite books that I read in the year of 2025. I read 75 books this year, and out of those 75, 45 of those were comics. This year I have 4 books and 4 comics that I would like to discuss with you today that I consider my favorite. I will be discussing each of them in the order that I read them, and these are all the books and comics that I, of course, gave 4 or 5 stars. So, without further ado, let's just get started. My first favorite book of the year is Evocation by S.T. Gibson. The story follows a psychic trying to relieve himself of a family curse, and in the process, he ends up reconnecting with his ex boyfriend, who is some sort of important figure in a magic society, and his ex boyfriend's new wife, who is a more spiritual and naturalistic form of magical practicer. And together, they all try to help the main character relieve this family curse where he's sort of dying, and they end up connecting in the process. This book is one that really surprised me because I hadn't really heard about it before. I had heard about the author from A Dowry of Blood, but otherwise I hadn't heard about this book, and I really enjoyed it. I like how each character approaches and utilizes magic in a different way and how that reflects in their personality. And I really liked the development of the relationship between all 3 of the magical users, both romantically, in friendship, and over the course of the story. And I really liked the plot. There was really good stakes, and I am really looking forward to eventually reading the prequel and the upcoming sequel for this book. I read a lot of books of this sort of similar style recently, like books kind of like Ninth House and other such books that I just did not enjoy very much. So I'm really glad that I found myself enjoying this one. So my first favorite of the year is Evocation by S.T. Gibson. My next favorite book of the year is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. Now, this is my favorite book that I read off of the 100 Epic Reads of a Lifetime poster that I read every year. This one was my favorite off of the poster this year. The writing style is just incredible. It's haunting, it's compelling, it's disturbing, it's beautiful. It can be witty and funny at times. It's confusing, but also very simple. It is one of the most unique writing styles that I've ever come across in a novel. You follow the main character, Humbert, and his very intense obsession with a little girl he dubs Lolita, and you're just stuck following him in this horrific journey where just a lot seems to be going well for him and he seems to be getting his own way, and it just shows his obsession and his just sick twisted ideas of attraction and control, and it is just so compelling. It disgusts you. It is just so much, and I enjoyed every second of it. This is just such a powerful book. I can't believe that this is the author's second or even third language in English writing this, because it just seems so natural and just a lot better than a lot of even great English like authors that I have come across. This is just a very excellent novel, and I cannot recommend it enough. So my second favorite book for the year is Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. My next favorite book that I read this year is Matilda by Mary Shelley. This is an often neglected novella by Shelley about a woman's tragic life after her father reveals his passionate, incestuous love for her. This is a story by Shelley that is really not known because at the time of her trying to publish it, her father would not publish it for obvious reasons. But I think that this is just a wonderful display of the writing on feeling of passion and of loneliness. Shelley's writing has always been just really poignant and heartbreaking, as seen in her greatest work, Frankenstein, and here it is no different. Even though the novel is considered to be unfinished in parts, I still think that this was a wonderful tale and a wonderful expression of Shelley's writing. I just think that she is an amazing and emotional author, and I enjoyed this story a lot. It is a very short story, so I highly recommend this sort of story if you are into writing of loneliness, passion, tragedy, and trying to live through tragedy, because Mary Shelley knows all of those things extremely well. I wish this book had been more properly developed and published. It is so contemplative and fascinating. So once again, I highly recommend Matilda by Mary Shelley. And finally, my fourth favorite book of the year is The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This is an epistolary novel where a modern woman finds the journal of her ancestor who wrote in 1912, and he hears the story from a Blackfeet Native American vampire and his tragedy and his quest for revenge. This book just also had incredibly brilliant writing. It had wonderful writing that was accurate to the time period and a type of writing that you can get fully immersed into. I really, really enjoyed the juxtaposition of storytelling between the modern woman, the Lutheran pastor, and of course the Native American vampire. They all told their story in a wildly different way, and they all had incredibly different writing styles. And it takes some time to get used to the more complicated intellectual writing of the pastor. But once you get into it, you are just fully sucked into this really haunting and really beautiful tale. You have a real feel for all of the characters, even though they have done really bad things in both of their lives. I just think that they were both just incredible characters, and I enjoyed hearing about the life that both of them had. There are a lot of heavy themes explored in this novel, but I think that they are themes that are done wonderfully. There's revenge, colonialism, humanity, nature, modernity, horror, vengeance, just all the good stuff that you need in a vampire novel like this. I had been waiting for so long to find other stories that featured native or indigenous vampire characters, because I think that myth was so interesting to apply to other cultures, and this book did not disappoint. I really, really enjoyed this book a lot. It is a read that you do need to take your time with. You can't rush it, but it is one that has really, really stuck with me ever since I read it in May. So I highly recommend The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. And now we can continue on to my favorite comics of the year. So my first favorite comic of the year is Batman Death in the Maidens by Greg Rucka and Klaus Janson. This comic features the Al Ghul family and introduces Ra's al Ghul's forgotten and neglected daughter Nisa Al Ghul, and also has Bruce experiencing seeing the ghost of his mother Martha. I love the Al Ghuls as villains. I just think that they have wonderful gothic storytelling, and this book does not disappoint. There is a lot of twisted stuff that goes on in here, and I enjoyed every second of it. They are just an insane family, and I really, really enjoy that. Bruce seeing his mother's ghost is less interesting, but I think it ties well into the themes of the graphic novel and of everything going on in general. Plus, it gives the Al Ghuls more of a chance to shine in here. It is just a wild story on death and family, and just read it. I really, really enjoyed it. It is wonderful. My next favorite comic that I read this year, is it going to be anything else other than Batman The Adventures Continue Season 1 by Alan Burnett, Paul Dini, Ty Templeton, and Monica Kubina? No, of course not. This was probably my favorite thing that I read this year in general. This comic was made for me specifically. So this is the continuation of the DCAU universe, that being Batman the Animated Series and all of the other shows that came out in the 90s and the 2000s. This book returns to form and features a lot of the characters that I had wished had been in the DCAU, and includes some of my favorite DC characters in general. And of course, that is Jason Todd, John Paul Valley, and Slade Wilson, Deathstroke. I just love the way that they incorporated all three of these characters, who it would be considered kind of impossible to add them into the cartoons. So adding them into the comics in such interesting ways was just so fun for me. I loved following all of their storylines. A lot of them were episodic, but then a lot of them featured into the season as a whole. And I just love Paul Dini's writing. I love Ty Templeton's recreation of the DCAU art style. I just think that this was just such a cool idea. And of course, you're adding my favorite characters into this season. Like, I never ever thought that I would see Deathstroke in the BTAS universe. And he's in here, and he's really, really cool. And I liked all the new character designs. I thought that Jason's introduction in here was also very interesting because on the show they had Tim Drake essentially replace Jason Todd in terms of his origin and a little bit of his personality, but in here it fit in perfectly. They had Jason as a little interlude in an otherwise long, training of the Robins, and I just think that this was so well done. I thought this graphic novel, was just a lot of fun. And of course, I just cannot wait to continue seasons 2 and 3 in the new year. But for now, this is my favorite comic ever, I think, in the whole wide world. So much fun. I loved this so, so much. I want to reread it. Like, I just loved this. So my favorite comic was Batman: The Adventures Continue Season 1. My next favorite comic that I read this year is, of course, Batman: The Black Mirror by Scott Snyder, Jock, and Francesco Francavilla. Now, this story has Dick Grayson as Batman, where he has to solve a very brutal and deeply personal case while also confronting his new identity as well as the nature of evil. Now, this story just has absolutely perfect character work on Scott Snyder's part. He captures Dick Grayson perfectly, as well as having him be Dick Grayson as a newly dubbed Batman. This is just excellent character work because there's a lot of stories that just fail to remember everything that has happened in Dick Grayson's past and how it has shaped his character, and this comic does not disappoint on that part. It is also great character work for Jim Gordon, who also has a personal tie to this case. That being his son is returning back to Gotham after having a very troubled and murderous and violent past. And I just think that this character work, both with Jim Gordon on his own, as well as his connections to both this new Batman that he recognizes but also doesn't, as well as his connection to Dick Grayson, that being Barbara Gordon's ex-boyfriend, is just incredible character work. That is one of my favorite things about comics, being the relationships of the characters as well as acknowledging their past and their present. It really shows the struggles that both of these characters face with a lot of care, and I just really like the way that this story goes. It's just really, really interesting, and the themes of good and evil, nature versus nurture, taking on new identities, just all fits brilliantly into this book. This is my favorite comic from Scott Snyder. I can confidently say that. This is excellent work on his part. Good for him. He's done a lot of hit and miss for me, especially with the Jim Gordon becoming Batman and having like a robot suit and everything. This is good. I like this. More of this, please. More detective work, more gothic Dick Grayson Batman work, please, please. So yes, one of my other favorite comics of the year is Batman: The Black Mirror by Scott Snyder. And finally, my favorite comic that I read this year is Batman Vampire by Doug Mensch, Kelly Jones, and other collaborators. This is the comic that includes all of the three Otherworld Tales of the Multiverse Elseworld comics that feature Bruce Wayne fighting Dracula and eventually becoming a vampire. I just love the art style in here by Kelly Jones. I love my bat with enormous giant bat ears. This had interesting stories in it. First, they were really pulpy and fun, but then they actually got into the proper delving into Bruce's character as he is forced to become a vampire and kill people and drink blood, and his resistance to that, and eventually all of his companions in his crime fighting having to stop Batman himself because he is now a monster. So just really, really fun stuff, really good stuff. Love this 90s pulpy horror that mixed fun and violence with really dark, serious gore, violence, and emotions. This was just really, really fun. I love vampire stories. I love Batman stories. So, of course, this was the perfect marriage of the two. And I highly recommend them as easy, easy fun for the Halloween season. I really, really enjoyed these comics. So that's it. These are all of my favorite books that I read this year. Oh, God, doing this one handed is so hard. Now, of course, I did read a lot of things that I consider to be kind of stinkers this year, but I was trying to branch my horizon and really challenge myself in my reading. And I think that I have finally found my niche. I'm into really emotional, good writing, compelling, gothic tales of vengeance, of character relationships, and of just things that are sort of, not acceptable in society. And I, of course, enjoy reading about outcasts as well. And I think a lot of the novels really capture my reading taste. And I am so glad that I found a lot of novels this year that have all of those similar things and that I really, really enjoyed. Of course, all of my comics, once again, were Batman, but that can't be helped. That's really the only comics that I'm reading this year, and I plan to read more, of course, into next year. And I'm just so looking forward to all of the new opportunities to read more Batman, as well as reading way more novels that I hopefully will enjoy as much as I enjoyed these ones. Sorry that the video this time is a little bit jumbled. I did write down all of my thoughts, but it is snowing so much this morning. It's going to be 12 centimeters, so I was, of course, more jumbled about that. But thank you so, so much for watching. Don't forget to like if you like this video and subscribe if you didn't. I will see you all next time. Happy holidays and see you next year. Bye bye.